Welcome back to Alpha Recap, your market wrap from stockalpha.ai. The market day is done, and we've got a lot to unpack from July 16th. As always, if you have questions, you can reach us at stockalpha.ai.
Great to be here. Big picture. The S&P 500 exchange-traded fund finished the session up about 0.6%. The NASDAQ 100 exchange-traded fund outperformed, finishing up about 1.2%. And small caps were basically flat, up about 0.1%.
So what really stands out here is the clear tech and AI leadership. Micron and a few other names really set the tone for the day.
Yeah, that tracks.
I mean, when you step back and look at this, two threads ran the tape. AI and semiconductor momentum on one hand, and company-specific beats like United Health on the other. Those combined offset some mixed signals from energy. And the AI stuff wasn't abstract. Micron was front and center as the memory names showed renewed optimism tied to data center demand and enterprise AI spending. That pushed a NASDAQ 100 ahead of the broader market.
Right.
United Health also surprised on the upside late in the session, which helped healthcare and defensive areas join the rally, even if the overall leadership stayed growth-heavy.
Wait, really?
Yes, United Health reported second quarter results that topped expectations, and that gave the tape a bit of breath outside pure tech.
Right. And the other thing is the clean energy angle. Utilities with renewable contract wins saw inflows. So you had this defensive to defensive plus rotation, where utilities acted more like growth plays for the day.
Exactly. Materials and mining also caught a bid. Traders pushed those names as industrial demand hopes picked up, tying back to infrastructure and the AI build-out needing more raw materials.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's break down the sectors quickly. Technology and semiconductors led. Financials were constructive, with Goldman Sachs helping the group. Utilities benefited from clean energy contract headlines. Materials rallied on commodity demand hopes, and real estate got some support from leasing momentum in parts of the market.
Financials were interesting. It wasn't just broad bank strength, it was selective. Goldman Sachs' upbeat tone helped, but the theme was rotation into cyclical spots tied to growth.
On the flip side, energy was a mess of mixed signals today. Some large integrated oil names slipped on margin and demand chatter, while a few E&P and services names held up on localized flows. Not a clean one-way move there.
Cannabis, too, was stock-specific. Legal wins in pockets, but compliance and regulatory risk kept the group volatile rather than broadly positive.
Exactly. So what really stands out here is that breadth was positive but contained. The advance was driven by a concentrated set of leaders, tech and AI-related names, with some broadening into clean energy and materials, but not a full market rotation.
Historically, we've seen these AI-led, narrow leadership phases stick around until either more companies join the party on earnings or macro surprises force a wider rotation back into defensives.
Analysts note that today's tape suggests the market is pricing in a mild slowdown rather than a recession. Policy is still expected to remain restrictive for longer, and that combination supports this cautious, measured advance.
So what were the standout individual moves? Micron was the most talked about name. Its move reinforced the idea that memory is a high beta play on AI restocking and data center demand.
Astera Labs in the small-cap hardware space also reported a strong quarter tied to AI buildouts, which lifted other data center suppliers. And Goldman Sachs led the financials rally after some upbeat commentary.
There were also losers that drew attention. Trex had a mixed reaction post-quarter as investors debated demand durability, and some small-cap lending names like Capital Southwest were under pressure on idiosyncratic issues.
Crypto-related equities saw some institutional momentum, which contributed to pockets of risk-on trading in tech and payments names. So it wasn't just chips and healthcare. There were multiple micro-themes at play.
So what really stands out here is how interconnected these threads are. AI demand lifts semiconductors, which lifts some industrials and materials, and clean energy wins lift certain utilities. But it all hinges on whether this leadership broadens.
Let's be clear about the risks. Momentum indicates a cautiously constructive near-term market. But the narrow leadership means indices could be vulnerable to headline risk or disappointing earnings out of the big names.
Analysts caution that a surprise in inflation prints or hawkish Fed commentary could quickly flip leadership back toward defensives.
Speaking of the Fed and macro, there weren't any blockbuster macro prints driving today's move, but traders are positioning ahead of upcoming inflation and labor data, and more Fed commentary later in the summer.
Right, so watch the earnings flow, especially whether the positive surprises extend beyond today's handful of winners, and watch CPI, PPI, and payrolls for anything that would shift rate expectations.
Quick reactions. Big move in semiconductors.
Utilities acting like growth. Right.
Narrow leadership. Something to respect. Yeah.
Here's a simple way to think about the AI and memory story for listeners who aren't deep in hardware. Data centers need memory chips to run AI models. When companies ramp AI projects, they buy more memory, which helps names like Micron and other suppliers. That's why memory is considered a high volatility lever. Big upside when demand pops, and big downside if it stumbles.
And for clean energy things, utilities with renewable contracts look like safer ways to play the energy transition because they combine the stability of utilities with growth from renewables and contracts.
Let's give listeners the quick takeaways from today's session.
Takeaway 1. The market closed up in a measured way, led by tech and AI-linked names, with the Nasdaq 100 outpacing the S&P 500 exchange-traded fund and small caps barely higher.
Takeaway 2. Company-specific beats, notably United Health, plus momentum in memory and AI supply chain names like Micron and Astera Labs, and clean energy contract wins were the main catalysts.
Takeaway 3. Breadth was narrow. Analysts note that this pattern tends to persist until either earnings broaden the leadership or macro surprises force a rotation. So market internals are still the key watch.
Finally, watch the next set of heavyweight earnings, upcoming inflation and labor prints, semiconductors for follow-through, and any energy headlines that could inject volatility.
Honestly, I was a bit surprised by how clean energy flows helped utilities stand out today. That was a neat twist on a typical tech-led tape.
Yeah, not your grandfather's utility sector, right?
All right, that wraps our recap for July 16th. If you want the charts or a deeper breakdown, head to stockalpha.ai. We've got the write-ups ready.
If you have questions about anything we covered today, head to stockalpha.ai, where you can ask us directly and we'll answer live. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai.